I'm Dr. Gavin Lloyd. I'm an emergency department consultant. I work in Exeter. Let me tell you a story. Some of you might have had the privilege of visiting Wales. If you go way the other side of Swansea, you'll eventually get to my hometown. It's called Aberaeron. And just beyond Aberaeron, there's a couple of lovely villages, small ones. One's called Llannon, the other one's called Llanrystud. All sounds very Welsh, doesn't it? In between those two small villages, there's a long straight. It's an A road, it's a long straight. It's the sort of straight that if you're a young lad, it's the sort of straight that you might want to see just how fast your dad's car actually goes. I was your age, I was 17, I'd not long past my test. And some mates and I had been to the cinema. It was late at night. I was driving back and I just entered that straight. And bizarrely, alongside me, pulls another car. And I recognised the other lad. He was in the year ahead of me. And he had a car full of mates as well. And we were already doing 60 miles an hour, and I could see what he'd done there was thrown down the gauntlet. It was a race. I pulled hard on the gear stick in my dad's car and pressed my foot to the accelerator, and the car shot forward, but nowhere near as fast as the other car, and the other car just shot off into the distance. And I was sort of disappointed, but at the same time just relieved. I didn't really want to be racing. Let's go forward 10 years from that, and I was a doctor out in Australia. It's called the Royal Perth Hospital. It was Christmas Eve, the night of Christmas Eve. In my experience, shit happens on Christmas Eve. And that night was no exception. We'd got a call from the ambulance service. There'd been a big car crash. And the first girl to arrive, she must have been in her mid-20s. I realised very quickly that my skills as a doctor weren't going to help her. There was a big skull fracture, it was open, there was already brain oozing out the side of the head. About half an hour later, her husband arrived. He had some minor injuries, he'd had some seatbelt injuries. And I had to explain to him that not only was his wife dead, but so was their 3-year-old boy who'd been sitting on the wife's lap. Through his tears, he explained to me that they'd been expecting a baby. His wife was 5 months pregnant. And about another half an hour later, the occupants of the other vehicle arrived. They were all lads about your age. The driver, who had some minor injuries, was in police custody. He was crying. He wasn't crying because of his injuries, he was crying because he'd realised what he'd done. I don't think at that point he realised the consequences for his own actions, as in what it would mean for him. Clearly he'd wiped out the family of a young man, but he was also looking at a prison sentence. If you're from Australia or you're from the UK, that's called manslaughter. And as well as the anger we might have felt towards that young lad, I also felt sorry for him. And I could reflect on my own time, my own experience, when I could have been involved in a car race, and had I realised that if you want to get your car going really fast, you slam it down into third and not fourth, I could have been racing properly. And I could have caused the carnage that he'd done. Whether you're just trying to impress your mates by speeding, whether it's I'll just have a little bit of alcohol or a bit of drugs, whether you're texting or whether you're using your phone, or whether you're just generally arsing around, you can kill. You can kill yourselves, you can kill your mates, or as in this story, you can kill other people. Or you can take responsibility as a driver. Thank you for listening.